Hello, everybody. This is Block Digest episode 97 coming at you at block height 522,397. Today we have No Para joining us again.
Hi, guys.
Janine.
Guten Tag.
Mr. JW.
Hey, guys.
And Rick.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Hope everybody's day's going well.
All right, so I am on the road, tone-based style on a laptop, so I'm going to start off by rambling about something incoherently, and then probably pass it off to everybody else a lot more heavily today. But before I got settled, when I was on the road, I came across this article on Bitcoin.com, and this just triggered me beyond belief. Like this entire article is like pretty much Roger and Bitcoin.com trying to codify in as succinctly as possible form that I have seen yet a complete gaslighting and just revisionist view of Bitcoin history. And I just wanted to go break this down and respond to each of the points now. And I'm probably going to go back and do something written later on with actual citations. But it just starts off, cryptocurrencies are groundbreaking. The technology has the capacity to return power to the people, and Bitcoin is compromised in an attack. And then it just starts going off like it's not the math, it's not the technology, it's the community that was the attack vector. And now what was originally Bitcoin is now called Bitcoin Core or SegWitcoin rather than Nakamoto's amazing invention Bitcoin. The attack happened imperceptibly using psychology to manipulate you. And then the scaling debate, 2014, 2015. This is the first complete bullshit part. This divide, this notion of doing scaling on chain or in a layered stack has existed literally the entirety of Bitcoin's history. The first response to Satoshi Nakamoto on the mailing list was somebody saying this will not scale on chain. You can't simply put all the world's activity in a blockchain. You would use this as a basis to build on top of or have Bitcoin banks, as Hal Finney suggested, because again, this was right after the concept was first released. Like there was no complicated notion of all the different primitives you could use to build trustless, decentralized second layers. Like it was just, it's not happening on the main chain, so private banks. And that kind of thought process, obviously, like we've seen evolve drastically over the entire history until the modern day. But like off the bat, they just completely lop off half of Bitcoin's history, where that divide, that different tactical thinking in terms of how to scale this technology, it was from day one. And they immediately just completely try to lie and paint this as some recent thing that popped out of nowhere maybe 3 or 4 years ago because of new people infiltrating from the outside. And it's ridiculous. And then they start to go on to the censorship in Reddit and not Bitcoin.org or talk.org, but Thamos and his policies of pretty much not wanting new people coming into the space to just have massive spam. The first thing they see, run this client that has drastic changes to the core protocol that they're buying a token in, and just completely mislead them. And again, I'm going to probably go back and write this with citations a little more. But the entire issue was specifically trying to get uninformed new people to run a piece of software that would fork and change the network. That was the issue. Beyond maybe a week of Thamos starting a policy, you didn't get banned for discussing on-chain scaling or the trade-offs involved in the block size parameter. Like it's a complete revisionist twist on history. And then to round this off, he kind of like a little bit previously laid out the Moore's law and law of accelerating returns argument, which is nonsense. And you really just have to look to the Spectre and the Meltdown bugs recently, which was a way to kind of take advantage of computers being designed to guess what code it's likely going to run next and preload it faster, because we've had to do things like that to keep performance gains in hardware going. And then like, that's the context he comes into the whole censorship argument and nonsense. And then this part really just set me off. They try to paint this picture that like Mike Hearn and Gavin Andresen were pushed out of Bitcoin development. And they don't mention him by name, but that same kind of nonsense is kind of bandied around regarding Jeff Garzik too. Mike Hearn tried to start a contentious fork, failed, and rage quit. Gavin Andresen, he just stopped contributing over time. Like by the time his access was revoked, or his key for the repository, because of the whole vouching for Craig Wright nonsense, he'd really not committed anything in like a year or two. And he himself, when his key was revoked, said that he should have given it up sooner, because having that key floating around when he wasn't using it was a security vulnerability. And same thing with Garzik. He just stopped contributing. Like these people weren't kicked out or forced out. People didn't agree with them, and so they just stopped participating. So it's like, it is the exact opposite of what actually happened being put in this article on Bitcoin.com, which is what newbies are going to associate with Bitcoin, as here's what's been happening before you arrived. And then like they bring up the scaling debate as the cause of the crash from 20K. I mean, I can't even really like comment on that. And you know, the last thing before I just pass it off to everybody else, like I'm just going to be rambling for way too long on this, is this nonsense about AXA Insurance being invested in Blockstream. AXA doesn't even own a 10% stake in that company. They have no material control over what that company does with its resources whatsoever. And yet here you have this being pointed to, the chairman at this company was involved in the Bilderberg group. Well, it's a very, very wealthy company. No shit. All companies in that tier of value are a part of or deal with the Bilderberg. That's what it is. But again, they have almost no material control over this company. And it's just like this entire article is like, this is what they're doing. Like they are quadrupling down on just completely rewriting the reality of what has been happening in this space historically, and just continuing to lie to new people who come into this space. And like, we need to just get brutal and blunt and vicious with citation of everything to start calling this shit out, because they're not going to stop. And the more people like who start coming in who are just, ooh, that thing. Peoplethink.com. They associate authority with domains and sources of information. And we need to like take that into account. But I mean, you know, Shinobi rant done.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that pissed me off the most about this article is that they're telling people, one of the first things that they got really wrong was they're saying that Bitcoin, as we know it, is now referred to as Bitcoin Core or SegWitCoin. And I saw a chart earlier today that showed that there's really only 2 or 3 groups that are using the term Bitcoin Core to describe Bitcoin. And that's CoinGeek and Bitcoin.com. And I can't remember the third one. I don't know if they named Roger Ver specifically, but Roger is involved in both of those. So, yeah, and this, like, we're going to get into this a bit later with my thing, but this, like, to me, this article is, I hope that in a few years, an article like this, people will take one look at it, don't even have to read it, but they will take one look at it, see that they don't cite any sources for 99% of the things that they say. People should be able to look at that and say, this isn't worth reading. They don't cite any of their sources. This is not original material, therefore it's not worth reading. Like, that's the kind of readership culture that I want to develop, because just as you were scrolling through this thing, I was like, they don't cite any sources whatsoever. I have sources that completely contradict everything they say, that like they're misquoting people, bringing up quotes that no one ever actually said. And it's just frustrating, because it's like, all you have to, if you actually went and found the source, then you'd show that that was not the case. Of course, they're not going to do that. They're basically, their journalism is built on the basis that people they trust and do not verify. And that's what I hate. And what was the other one that was in there? Yeah, the part about the scaling debate beginning in 2014, 2015, and that most of it was happening on Reddit and Bitcoin Talk. That's maybe most of it was happening there, but I'm not on either of those. I was doing most of my conversation on YouTube and Twitter. The idea that you can say most of the conversation was happening on such and such platforms, when a lot of the people in the space are anonymous and use private forms of communication that are not public. I feel it's completely weird to leave out big platforms like Twitter, which have been like pretty instrumental, like not even list them. That seems kind of weird to me.
Yeah, I think that's maybe because you get like, different opinions on Twitter right now. And yeah, it's something I'm even going to get into a little bit with my story. It's just like the way that, history sort of gets like revised a little bit on these articles. And then, they try to just push it out without any sources. And that's just the way of the day. But I don't know. I think things are changing. I was just having a discussion the other day about Bitcoin and the meetups and everything, and the way that people get their information nowadays. And, people come to those meetups because they don't really feel like they can rely on any source online. They get speculative, even if they're reading something, from the company. It's like, is this the company's website? Is it being like manipulated at this point in time? It's something where I think it's unfortunate that people, they're going to try and take advantage of others because they don't understand that they need to verify this information and get sources. So I don't know. I think it's going to change just culture to where there will be these people that sort of just get led astray. It's unfortunate that this still goes on, but it's not really surprising from Bitcoin.com.
Yeah, it's infuriating to deal with, though, because like, it's sad. It sucks. I want to see a change, but like something.com, it sticks in people's head. They're used to it. It just subconsciously seems like an authoritative like source of information. And like the normal person doesn't dig through for citations unless they're like right there. Like unless you call attention to them. Most people can just get away with saying shit. And like we need to start getting vicious about calling this shit out. Like, or it's just going to dig itself in deeper and then get that anchor point to try and spread a little bit further. And it's like this comes down to just fact. That this is not like two differing opinions on some issue without a definitive answer. Like this is over representing history factually or just outright making shit up and lying.
Yeah, I agree. It's gonna, I mean, it's not gonna stop Bitcoin, right? Like it's gonna be fine, but it is a pain in the ass, and it probably will have an impact on how rapidly we're going to see Bitcoin adoption, right? It's not going to slow it down by years, but it could slow it down by at least days, weeks, or months, and that means a lot of unnecessary suffering in the world. So that's why I was trying to get that dark side btc.com thing up and running so that we could document these guys. Like the page on Roger Ver is really good, but basically everything else is blank. So I'm offering like $200. Like, I don't know what to do to get people to go out to this wiki and fill it out. I don't want to do it because I've got too much other stuff going on, but I'm trying to get people to realize, oh, if something pisses them off like this, just go out to the wiki, and throw in some citations and a few sentences that describe this dirty stuff. So, you know, a citation referencing this article from the Dark Side Bitcoin or darksidebtc.com page would probably take like 2 minutes, and it's probably going to have a bigger impact than like us talking about it on the show, actually, because you know, this is very ephemeral, right? Like people are going to hear, oh yeah, Roger Ver did a shitty thing again and is lying. Whatever. But if it's on the wiki, I mean, stuff that's put up on Wikipedia is still referenced years later and is seen as truth, especially if it's cited. So yeah, anyway, if you're feeling pissed off enough, anybody that's listening, go out to darksidebtc.com, throw in some content, and then hit me up on Twitter and just tell me what you added, and I'll throw some Bitcoin and tips your way.
Hey guys, quick. I just noticed Roger Ver commented on one of our videos. I think delete it now.
Oh, he tweeted.
Wait. What?
I made a joke. At least I tried.
Nice.
I'm sorry, dude. I am not my usual jokey self because I'm used to 2 screens and a very responsive mouse juggling multiple windows.
Yeah, man. Sorry about that. It's just on the road troubles for sure. But man, I think you're a JW, your darksidebtc.com. This is people do sort of like respect those domain names and stuff. Yeah, like we should start pushing out some tweets whenever we see something like this and sort of just like do a quick punch out of like, hey, for you aggravated with this, want to help change it, edit darksidebtc.com, get a little bit of reward for it. Because I know there are, a lot of people out there reading Twitter that kind of wish they could help and don't know how they could help. And maybe these are the sort of things we need to push out and, just get some eyes on it. Because, yeah, if we could get that together, then it would be great to sort of counter all this stuff where, we could just send people somewhere to sort of counter all what they're reading in these different.
Yeah, that's a good point, man. I'll tweet it out right now. Everybody that's listening, you lazy bastards, retweet this and let's start documenting these guys.
Sounds good.
Mm-hmm. It's just getting the initial work and then keeping it current. Like it's the initial work part that nobody wants to do. Once we get it done, it's done.
That's right. All we got to do is build that model.
Yeah, and I just want to quickly, because, Mike Hearn was mentioned once again as the, Satoshi's prodigal son and all that. He did an interview, I think, let me check really quick the date. I don't have the date written down, but it was when he was doing the Bitcoin XT fork. You can find it. I think it's an Epicenter Bitcoin interview titled Mike Hearn Block Size Debate at the Breaking Point. And one of the things he said, which I'm really surprised that it's like one of it, because it mentions a term that he coined, but not coined, but he used a lot, called benevolent dictator. But no one has really, I haven't seen people like share this portion of the interview he gave a lot, but at one point in the interview, he said at 47 minutes, 58 seconds in, Bitcoin XT is actually not my preferred solution. My preferred solution is that Gavin revokes commit access from everyone else in the project, then makes a change himself and says, Bitcoin Core has made a decision and this is how it's going to be. But he's reluctant to do that. And then there's like a little bit of side commentary with the interviewer. But then he says, I don't know of any other open source project that has this notion of development by consensus. We can talk about that in a minute, but every project that I know of, certainly every successful open source project, has a kind of benevolent dictator. That's what we call them, someone who makes a decision, a technical leader. Bitcoin Core doesn't have that, and that's a big part of the reason why we have this issue, end quote. That was just like, is that quote when I had heard him say benevolent dictator before in an interview in a written form, but not in a video. And it just shocked me that people still think of him as like a leader or someone to listen to in regards to Bitcoin, because his I mean, guys, he came from Google. His whole idea of how to run Bitcoin is based on the Google model, where you have a CEO, they acquire a bunch of other companies. They don't really have a vision. They just work on a ton of stuff all the time. They like, you know, some kind of, what's the word? There was that movie where it was like a slime monster going around, bouncing all over the place. That's basically what Google does. It doesn't really have a concrete vision, although its concrete vision ends up aligning with intelligence agencies a lot of the time and Western governments. But like Mike Hearn's idea of how Bitcoin consensus apparently should work is completely against like what I hear from the majority of people who actually work on Bitcoin. And so I'm not surprised he left. And I find it really annoying that he keeps being brought up as this person like, oh, how sad, we lost him. Like he got pushed out. It's like, no, congratulations for getting this guy out. Like, we do not want benevolent dictators. I certainly don't. And the idea that we should want one guy to just swoop in and remove everyone's commit access and start telling people what to do is horrifying.
It's also just such a misunderstanding of how open source projects work. Like there's not even a mechanism to do that. Like all that is the GitHub repository, right? Like, so what? If somebody took over the GitHub repository, it would cause some trouble when people need to download new code, but it would be like 5 minutes to go, oh yeah, that a-hole screwed up that repo, so now we use a different one, right? It's not, it's just absurd, right? And Gavin still, if he wrote one line of useful code, it would still go in, right? Like, it's not like he's been blacklisted anyway. He's just a worthless piece of crap that hasn't done anything. But if he actually did anything this week and wrote one line of useful code, like test code or just like a useful comment, he could still put in a check-in request. I'm sure it would be merged. So this whole thing is just kind of silly.
It's not that silly, you know. Really, almost every open source project works in the way like Mike Hearn describes it, with the benevolent dictator, you know. And Bitcoin, the .NET library, Nicolas Dorier is the benevolent dictator, or Linux kernel, Linux stalwarts, or I can't even recall any open source project that doesn't have this benevolent dictator other than Bitcoin. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I don't disagree that that's normally how it happens, but part of it is that like if you're working on Linux and you want to do something that he doesn't want to do, like Linux, then you just fork it, right? And you just go do that and you call it, you know, Banana Linux or something, right? And because of the way Bitcoin is, I don't know, just it's not something where you want to fork it and you want to run multiple different versions, right? It's a protocol level thing. And it's so important. I think those are the distinctions, but the idea that like you're locked out or you can't participate, I think is really, really silly. Or the idea that there needs to be one person, or that if that one person made a decision, we'd all have to go along with it. Like, no, that's not how this works. Like, it's just a repo. And at the end of the day, the thing that matters is the code that you install on your node and on your miner, and everything else is just sort of, it's like stuff for convenience, right? It would be more convenient if we don't have to have a GitHub repo that gets compromised and we have to move to another one. But it's not like there's a trademark or anything like that that's preventing anybody from forking, creating a new repo, right?
Yeah, I'm not arguing. I think how Bitcoin Core works right now is perfect. I'm just saying that other open source projects work more like Mike Hearn imagine. But Bitcoin is a unique project. I mean, Linux is just an operating system, but Bitcoin not just money, it is going to be the money. So we can't really have one person dictating what's going on, you know?
Yeah, it's like high security to the extreme. So yeah, that makes sense.
All right. Well, I don't know, Janine, you want to take us along through the Huawei story? Hello, hello. Did the NSA get
Sorry,
the
I was bouncing around my tabs like Flubber. That was the movie I was thinking of with the late Robin Williams. So yes, this so it's pronounced Huawei, right?
Oopsies.
Yes.
So I'm going to screen share a little chart that I made. I mean, Shinobi, if you want to actually show the article first, that's fine. I just made a chart to compare. If you want to share initially the Bloomberg article that popped up. Yeah, so there was
the Beauty on tweet.
Yeah, so Beautyon made a tweet yesterday that was sharing a Bloomberg article about how Huawei was, according to this copy of the article, they were going to have BTC.com's Bitcoin wallet pre-installed on all of their smartphones. Or I don't know if they're all smartphones. I think some of them might just be less smartphones. But the quote that they gave, or Beautyon gave, was interesting because when you actually went to look at the article several hours after this tweet, it didn't look at all the same. There was a lot of paragraphs missing. There were some paragraphs added. That original paragraph has also been changed. So if you want to focus on my screen share, I looked at all, there was at least 3 versions of the article. The one that Beautyon shared is on the left, where it says, Huawei, the world's 3rd biggest handset maker, is releasing BTC.com's Bitcoin wallet in its app gallery, according to Alejandro de la Torre, BTC.com's vice president of business operations. The BTC.com wallet will be the first cryptocurrency app offered by the Shenzhen-based Huawei. It will be pre-installed on all new Huawei and Honor phones and will be rolled out to older devices in the coming months, he said. So that was the quote that was from Beautyon's tweet. But then it got a little weird because they basically made a few revisions, and one of the biggest revisions was, it turns out the BTC.com wallet will not be pre-installed on the phone. It will be the app gallery, and BTC.com's wallet will be in that app gallery, which is obviously not as big of a deal as, an actual application being installed directly on the wallet, because that kind of implies that there was a partnership usually. Like, to get that level of, prioritization is a big deal. So the first change you see in yellow here was the app gallery will be pre-installed on all devices. So that's a big difference. One of the two of the paragraphs that were actually removed entirely from the article was another quote from de la Torre. I'm not sure. I think it's because he lives in Amsterdam. I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. De la Torre. Okay. So there was a quote from him saying, "It's a good opportunity to tap into the Chinese market. The use of cashless payments with apps is very big, and the traditional banking system is lacking. So there's a good use case for crypto payments to grow there." And then they also have a quote from the vice president of Huawei. "From our leadership position in China, the tip of the spear of mobile payments, we expect to see massive growth in global cryptocurrency adoption habits in the near future." The interesting part was, before these 2 quotes, like, Bloomberg actually pointed out, like, hey, that's kind of interesting, because China has really been cutting down on, exchanges and stuff recently. So it's kind of weird that they would allow for this app to be there, which it ended up being the case, because in the latest iteration of the article, they actually removed the attribution of the first quote in the first paragraph to de la Torre. It just says, according to an email statement by the company now. And they added this other they removed these 2 paragraphs in red here, and they just replaced it with BTC's Bitcoin wallet. It should be BTC.com Bitcoin wallet application was reviewed by App Gallery and was approved for official release in multiple countries and regions, not including mainland China. So they went from saying, hey, this thing is going to be, offered, they were focusing on the Chinese market, and then it turns out, oh, it's not actually approved for use in mainland China. So that means that the only Chinese people, I guess they still have somewhat access to the Chinese market, but that basically limits it to Hong Kong, not as big of a market as before. Instead of citing the vice president of Huawei directly, they now just say a Huawei spokesperson. So they not only removed attribution for quotes, maybe because the fact that they had led people on was a bit uncomfortable for them, and maybe have no idea whether they fabricated the quotes or whether the people who made the quotes ended up realizing, oh, this is probably bad. This kind of misrepresents what we actually did. We should probably retract this. And then we're like, oh, please don't attribute this quote to me. It was just really funny to see 3 different versions of an article come out within a day period. And, archives help with revision controlled journalism, and that's one of the things I'm working on. So I guess if, I can't remember the name of the Bloomberg journalist. I'll pull it up right now if I can. Shinobi, do you have the article open? Do you see the journalist name?
It's Camilla Russo.
Yeah. So if they had been, using some revision software, it would have been transparent to everyone that Bloomberg didn't really do very well on their editorial side and making sure that quotes were accurate, that they weren't putting out a press statement that misrepresented what was going on. And if they did receive quotes that misrepresented the situation, then they should have put at the very least, a statement at the bottom of the article saying, we received misleading information. We have corrected the article to reflect the situation that, this will not be available in China and the app is not being pre-installed on the phone. It's just the app gallery. So yeah, use case for revision control journalism, and it would have made things more transparent and a lot less confusing, because right now there are a whole bunch of people on Twitter who are celebrating the fact that a bunch of people in China who didn't previously have good access to Bitcoin are now having access or better access. And it's like, okay, it's been added to the app gallery. That's great. And I guess because Shinobi, I know you had some, and I have them too, but we had strong feelings about the fact that they chose to add BTC.com's wallet, which, as is mentioned in the article, is a subsidiary of Bitmain. And we would love to know what their goal was in terms of, getting better access to the Chinese market, because as far as I can tell, BTC.com doesn't do a lot of marketing. It just seems like a kind of a side project of Bitmain. So I don't know what their goals are for expansion, but I'm worried about the fact that a lot of the web wallets and stuff in the space tend to just siphon data off from their users. And that is not something that I would want on pre-installed on a phone that is going out to people who, are vulnerable in that way.
But would you want good Bitcoin wallets to be pre-installed for a bunch of people?
I mean, the only reason I'm not is if it was a Bitcoin.com's wallet, that would really scare me. The only thing that doesn't scare me as much is the fact that, I guess the wallet seems to work, and they also added SegWit pretty early, so they're not complete. And they also they have Bitcoin Cash, but when you go to their website, it shows Bitcoin first, so they're not operating the same way as Bitcoin.com is. But I'm not as familiar with how BTC.com's wallet operates. I'm just worried about the fact that it's owned by Bitmain, and it looks to be more of a web wallet. And I'm just always, in general, if a wallet doesn't have a strong policy of, protecting privacy or anonymity, then I'm worried about when they specifically seek out a smartphone company that reaches a lot of people in countries like China and the Middle East.
Yeah, I think a Bitcoin wallet for smartphone users, that's something that they need if they're going to use Bitcoin. But it is something like you're saying, BTC.com, they're a subsidiary of Bitmain. They're kind of under that umbrella where, there might be something going on with the Chinese government. And, just the way that this whole story came out, I mean, like, saying that it was going to be pre-installed on all these Huawei phones and, going all the way to, well, this is going to be available in the app gallery in the region, but not in mainland China, which I don't know. The original part of this about being pre-installed on Huawei phones kind of sounds like this is like everybody in China is going to have a pre-installed Bitcoin wallet. And to go from there to that, it's it's pretty big change in story. And, it definitely points out why we need some sort of revision controlled journalism to keep some sort of accountability in this space and these sort of stories, and like what's the end result or goal in this story. I mean, I don't know. The one thing that kind of jumped out to me is just like, it's Huawei, and that's the biggest cell phone producer in China, and it's Bitmain, which like their big, large mining presence and Bitcoin presence there in China. So like all of them coming together, and it's one of those things where Huawei, when they were first coming into the U.S., like we were getting reports of like, don't buy Huawei phones. You don't know what's pre-installed on that, like And I mean, we do the same thing. We've got phones out there where there are backdoors on there. So, I mean, it's nothing, out of the ordinary to think that there's something in there, where the Chinese government can sort of have access to that data. And I mean, like, I like, wallets on a smartphone, but it's kind of like I use a smartphone I don't carry around, and it's super secure. And I don't know, I like to pick the wallet that I use and make sure the development's moving forward in a direction I like and everything. So I can understand like all the, the sentiments of the story.
The thing that I kind of appreciated about this is it just reminds us like how useless looking at like the past price charts are. This is like a startup, and the information available to the market changes really rapidly, right? And so it turned out that this was FUD, or fraud or whatever you want to call it, and that it's not going to be pre-installed on several billion people's phones. But had it been, it obviously would have had a big impact on the price and a big impact on adoption. And that's the sort of stuff that, I mean, we weren't all tricked by it for the first 10 minutes until we looked into it, because it's completely ridiculous. This sort of stuff is like, it's in play, right? Like a government adopting a certain amount of Bitcoin as part of their central bank reserves. Like, it's probably not likely that it's going to happen this month, but it wouldn't be completely insane either. So trying to figure out what the price of Bitcoin is going to be in 2 months, I think, is a fool's errand, but or even worse in like 3 days. But other than that, we're going to see some stuff like this year. I think stuff that's on this size scale would be my guess.
Yeah, it'd be really interesting to see just some actual legitimate stories coming out about pre-installed wallets and everything, and just like go from there. But like we're saying, the days and trying to actually find what story is real, it's kind of the story today.
Yeah, it just kind of like spooked me at first, like to see the first like version claiming to be pre-installed, because like the minute I heard that and read that, like it was like, okay, so if any of these people just opt in the most frictionless way possible, which is likely the pre-installed thing on their phone, then unless this is a full SPV model connecting to random peers, which I'm almost positive BTC.com's wallet is not, it's connecting to their nodes, giving their nodes and their servers all of your addresses, all of your balance information, and giving them a gold mine of data that destroys your privacy, that actually becomes a very valuable economic asset in and of itself, in the same way that big companies like Google or Apple, Amazon, they all like gather that information to target ads, to refine, like some just even just sell the data itself. And like regarding your finances and all your financial activity, like that thought horrified me. And even though this is turning out to be nowhere near that, it really does have me worried about that happening at all in the future. Like, Nopar, earlier, you asked how we would all feel if it was a good Bitcoin wallet. I don't care what wallet it is. I do not want to see some wallet become the standard wallet on an entire hardware line like period. I don't care whether it's a good or bad wallet, because like unless that is designed specifically to obscure all of your information possible, to not give away any of your addresses or anything they can correlate that with, like that's still concentrating information, like whether they're trustworthy people or not. And I do not want to see that happen.
Yeah, and I'm actually glad that it ended up being, because like the paragraph I have in green that they added the latest version, that it just got reviewed by the app gallery. That means that, you know, it's kind of like Google allowing Samurai Wallet to have their wallet listed in Google Play Store. It's not that significant, and so that gives me the feeling that, especially if they're not trying to get into mainland China, that other wallets that have better features that we might be more willing to accept, or we would want more people to be using, those wallets will probably have a similar chance to get into the same app gallery. Like, it's not like this is an exclusive partnership or anything. So I'm glad it ended up being less scary than the article originally portrayed it as. And I think we had Alejandro on episode 46. So if he would ever be interested in coming back on the show to talk more about what went on here and why it was so weirdly announced, and what their ideas are about, or how they feel about having their wallet get this much attention, that would be interesting conversation to have.
Yeah, definitely, Alejandro. You know, if you're listening, or somebody you know is listening, it'd be nice to just hear a little bit about how the story all developed. So please come on back.
So I don't know, does anybody have any last input on this one before we move along to Francis?
Go ahead.
All right. Well, Janine, you want to pick it up from here? I got the screen share set up for you.
Yeah. I seriously think that we should consider actually having a segment on the show called Things Francis Coppola Knows Better Than You, because it just seems like every single day there's a new funny thing that she's said, and this is no different. She made the mistake of I think this is actually today. She made the mistake of calling Samson Mao a Bitcoin Core developer. And then she went through a whole bunch of conversations with people that was like moving the goalposts. So people were saying, no, he's not a Bitcoin Core developer. And I think if you go to the second archive tweet, she's basically just trying to justify the fact that she messed up and it's all our fault. It's not her fault for not, doing the due diligence, actually looking, maybe at Samson Mao's actual Twitter profile that she's tweeting at and being like, oh, he's not a Bitcoin Core dev, he works for this company, or, going to the Bitcoin repository and seeing that he's not even an influential contributor. Like, would have been super easy, but no, it's all our fault because guys, we're so transparent that we're not transparent. And that was basically her argument. She said, fascinating that Bitcoiners think no one has anything more important to do than plowing through the copious quantities of verbiage that they mistake for information. Putting absolutely everything indiscriminately in the public domain is not transparency. And so she went from, I did not make a mistake. I did not call this guy a Bitcoin Core dev, but if I did, that's all your fault. It was hilarious because people just, I don't know could we be more transparent? How could Bitcoin be more transparent to fit her definition of transparency? I don't know. The one thing I thought was like her most hilarious comment was she said that banks actually did a better job because they use common people language. Okay. That's an interesting point because she's made it several times, and I actually corrected her. I think did I include my tweet? Yeah, so this was from January where she made that similar statement that Bitcoin people use jargon and banks don't. And I said that I disagreed with that because I gave an example of where in the case of Wells Fargo, they would use the word solutions to describe accounts. So when they said, oh, we need more solutions, what they are actually saying is we need you to generate more fake accounts that your customers don't actually know about. It was pretty funny. So I gave her that example where banks use jargon. That's one of many. And she never responded to me. And I'm pretty sure she wouldn't respond again if I showed it to her. But it's just so hilarious that, like, sure, you can whatever, make whatever your arguments you want about Bitcoin not being transparent enough, even though most of the conversation is transparent, all of the code is transparent in multiple different places. But apparently banks are more transparent. That's where I would say no. Like, I don't know what reality you are living in, but that's really weird. The whole point of the whole point of Bitcoin, or at least one of the points of Bitcoin, was to have a more transparent financial system, because the obscurity of how banks operate and where your money actually is and who controls it, and how the monetary system even works is all very not transparent. And Bitcoin was trying to be the opposite of that. So I just wanted to highlight this because I don't know, do you guys think this is something we should regularly feature on? I don't know if it's worth featuring trolls that are so out of their depth, if it would just be funny or...
I don't know. She's so obnoxious to me that, and I just don't understand why she matters. You know, I just feel like some bank consortium has just hired her for like $20,000 a year because she's a shitty writer, and it's, you know, she's nobody, but it's her job to just post random garbage.
Yeah, I think, she comes from The Economist, and I see her regularly on Twitter arguing with Jaw about sound money and all sorts of weird things. And I don't know, it's funny I don't know if we should really take her that seriously, but I think, her segment and maybe Baby Brian's segment from Coinbase, like that sounds like some good regular, we might need to get a graphic for these guys.
I love
it. Do not steal this opportunity to channel my inner troll. I need this.
I think we should get her on our side and have a fight with Roger, where, you know.
Yeah, that sounds good.
Jenny, next time you talk to her, give her an opportunity, give her a window, you know, to I don't know, make friends, woman in Bitcoin, you know.
Well, I mean, I don't know her like if she could just if her argumentation style was sound, I might consider it, like, to some extent, but her argumentation style is that she can use as many ad hominems as she wants, saying people are stupid and dim-witted. She called Samson Mow propagandist, and when people very politely were like, I mean, some of them were not polite, but most of them were, and they were like, "No, you don't know what you're talking about. He's not a Bitcoin core dev. He works at Blockstream. If you can see all the code on GitHub." She was like, "Oh, I can't understand coder monkey talk, and you just don't know what you're talking about." It's like she doesn't even. It's not even. I don't know if it's worth arguing. It's funny to just look at her argue with a bunch of people and see her, keep moving the goalposts as far as she possibly can, and then analyzing why she's wrong. And the only reason I would think that might be worth doing is because, as you saw, some of the people that were liking her tweets were people like, I think, I don't know his last name, but David, and he wrote this book about debt, the history of debt. He's like an academic, and so he should know better, but I guess they're friends. And also Vinny Lingham was liking her tweets. So that was interesting. So the only reason I think it would be worth it to break that down is if by some chance the people who have been kind of suckered into her criticism being legitimate could see why it's so wrong.
And I'm rolling my eyes when people call Mike Hearn or me or Jimmy Song a Bitcoin core developer when we fixed some typos and had less than 5 contributions and talk a bit on GitHub issues, and now call Samson Mao Bitcoin core developer. This is this is priceless, you know.
Yeah. So
Samson could, like, put a comment in or fix a misspelling or something just so you can make that a true statement.
Really quick,
Yeah.
I wish I had a screenshot for this, but she has literally, in the span of one argument, said that Bitcoin isn't scarce because you can make altcoins and that's printing Bitcoins out of thin air, to it'll never function as like an inflation hedge because there's not enough of them.
Yeah, that's pretty bad.
yeah, so if there's anyone who is just as confused as she is and doesn't know where to find who contributes to Bitcoin, just go to a search engine, Google or DuckDuckGo, or maybe even one of the ones that Tor uses, which I think is DuckDuckGo now. Any search engine, just type in Bitcoin, GitHub, contributors. If you don't immediately go to the Bitcoin GitHub contributors page, which you might, depending on how good your search engine is, it'll take you to the main page of Bitcoin/Bitcoin, which is Bitcoin repository on GitHub. And there is actually a little bar which has like the number of commits. I think the releases is also listed there, the number of contributors, a bunch of data points with numbers. And one of them is contributors. And if you click on that, it'll take you to this nice little graph which shows you like top contributors in order with their names and the exact number of commits that they've made. And so you can search through that, and maybe you'll actually look at the code and, you know, instead of just saying this makes no sense to me and that means it's not transparent, maybe you should actually learn some of it if you don't agree with it or trust it or something, but just look at it and don't pretend that it doesn't exist.
Or just keep saying nonsense for whatever few dollars you're getting thrown.
All right, so I don't know, Rick, you want to kind of take us into the next one and give us an idea what's going on in South Korea?
Yeah, man. Looks like you know, South Korea Upbit's kind of taken head of the story on Twitter recently. You know, South Korea earlier this year, they went after BitHum and CoinOne after their prime minister said that cryptocurrencies are corrupting the South Korean youth. And so, you know, they've been stepping up regulations over there. And from the price rise last year, they started going in on exchanges looking for some tax money. But with Upbit here, you know, like we were saying, as far as these stories developing when it comes out initially, like at first they were saying Upbit was doing some, let's see, sorry. Yeah, like they were talking about there was some money being moved from like their accounts to executives' accounts there, doing some embezzlement. But recently, yeah, it's been sort of stepped up that there's just like some fraud going on there that they are investigating. And, you know, the article said that they were raided, but really it was just like some people showing up at their offices and, you know, seizing some computers and accounting records to look over some stuff. And Upbit is the fifth biggest global exchange and the biggest exchange there in Korea, usually running a couple billion through volume daily. So it was something where when these reports started coming out, you kind of started seeing the price moving down and people saying like, oh, well, then, you know, maybe this got something to do with this. And, you know, let's see. Sorry, I'm just trying to see like where we're going. So, yeah, so the fraud reported they're supposedly selling cryptos to people without there being any real crypto there, and that's just an IOU that they're issuing, and that you know, there's no, I don't know whether or not it's Bitcoin or what, but you know, we could speculate that in a little bit. But it says, you know, this guy Rand Neuner, he's got some sources over there in Korea with Upbit. And he was saying that the irregularity being investigated is in regards to liquidity issue. The issue involves sharing, pooling liquidity with other exchanges. It seems to be that the regulators did not understand the share liquidity, and this is from his source, and saying that it's no issue. And I mean, like they're trading and, you know, withdrawals and deposits are still going on. And there hasn't really been any like stopping of the exchange. It's just been like these accounts have been seized. And like we were saying, you know, there was an initial talk about maybe this is causing the price drop because this is such a big exchange and this information is coming out. What is this? And, you know, but recently, yeah, it says, you know, he was saying this shouldn't move the market down 15%, you know, it's buying the dip, which I think that's a pretty good call. But, you know, no investment advice from here. So, but, you know, so going on, like I started looking into what is going on with the price. And then we started seeing like some stuff going up about Mt. Gox coins being moved. And it's a possibility that, you know, not a possibility, the people monitoring those cold storage wallets for the Gox trustee is moving about 8,000 plus Bitcoins. And it's something where, you know, this might be causing the price drop. This is something where it's not, and I mean, and to me, it might even be a sign as to why Upbit got raided is because, I mean, is it a possibility that these Gox coins were being sold OTC to Upbit and like that Bitcoin wasn't actually on the exchange, and it's just sort of this sort of stop to figure out how these practices are being done as far as like, is the crypto on the exchange when they handle the OTC deal, or is it, how does it work? So, I mean, just in the sense that the exchange is still working, there's no problem there. And, you know, I don't think that that's causing the price drop and like, you know, these Gox coins possibly. And I just wanted to sort of open that up to a little bit of speculation, I guess, from us just about like what's going on there with the price in these Gox coins, since like it's kind of, I don't know, I guess people are a little worried about where we're at with the price.
Yeah, I mean, it's like, I think it could be part of the factors, but I mean, I don't know. Personally, when I see like big market movements, like I don't try to think of them in terms of like specific things. I try to look at like the entire situation and how many factors might be kind of all together informing what's going on. And I mean, this could have a little bit to do with it, but I'm mostly just kind of like, I don't know, with the Gox thing, like what's going to happen is going to happen. And I have been waiting for a sign with a big push before really saying we're out of moving downwards in the long term anyway. But I'm kind of more interested in the Upbit side of things, and like the issue potentially being the regulators not really understanding their liquidity. Because if I remember correctly, I think Upbit actually uses Bittrex as a liquidity provider. And so they kind of just like plug into Bittrex's order books to like stop their prices from dealing with such crazy slippage and stuff on low volume. And like, that's just kind of interesting because it's like just the regulators not grasping how the business is set up actually led to a raiding of the office. And it kind of got me thinking, like, is that going to be like the norm going forward? Like somebody thinks of a way to solve a solution, the bureaucrat doesn't understand it, so we're going to raid you and add all these costs to running your business and waste a bunch of your time because we're too stupid to understand what you're doing. And like that, that just doesn't seem like a really friendly environment going forward if that starts to develop into some kind of norm globally.
Yeah, I mean, that's probably the case. Not such a friendly environment there with the prime minister thinking that cryptocurrencies is corrupting their youth. But let me go from, I guess, that not so friendly environment to, I mean, was there anybody else wanted to comment on Upbit real quick before I move on?
Not really, just that like as far as the price movements and all that, my normal, I don't know what the hell's going to happen in the short term, but I have a pretty good idea what's going to happen in the long term.
All right. Yeah, I'm with you on that too. So going from, a not so comfortable environment to a more comfortable environment, BitFlyer, there was a story coming out of them where they're trying to hire 300 employees, mainly from Wall Street is what it sounds like. So yeah, BitFlyer, they recently doubled their headcount there in the past 6 months to 150 employees. And they've recently got licensing to work here in the US and Europe from, but they're coming out of Japan. And, they want to, I guess, grow their headcount even further, add an extra 300 employees. But they say that they're, looking at Wall Street, claiming that those with the best skills come from global banks. And, I guess that, they're trying to fill out their employees to get those traders up there and people that know what they're doing with the trading side of things. But they did tweet out, that they are actively recruiting people from all backgrounds who could code. They can make up from 100 to 200,000 a year just coming to work for them, even though if they don't have a high school or middle school education. As long as you can code and you know what you're doing and you're confident in the space, they're looking for employees there at BitFlyer because they're really trying to take the lead as far as being like a global force to be reckoned with in Bitcoin and the exchanges. So they're looking for authority now to move into Africa, South America, Australia, and Asia. Trying to continue their expansion, and they're the fourth largest exchange. Right now, running about 2 billion in volume. But it's legacy guys. It's alumni from Goldman Sachs that put this together in Japan. Where that sort of the deregulation of Bitcoin and crypto in general kind of took flight. So I guess they sort of wanted to be the global leaders. So you start up there in Japan, and then you start expanding, and you make sure you're taking all your steps right. But I don't know. I guess they got to do some hiring from Wall Street. I just wish they would take some more non-traditional people. But I'm sure they're going to be hiring some younger people from over there. And I think that these stories about these exchanges like taking off on a big level, it's kind of, I don't know. I kind of got mixed feelings about it just because it's like I'm saying, a lot of legacy guys doing sort of like grabbing traditional institutional people over there, but I guess it's a good thing to see, like, BitFlyer moving from, Japan to the US to, Europe, and now trying to continue their expansion. But it still is a centralized exchange. I'd like to see, like, them working, maybe put some effort into the decentralized exchange idea, but I guess it kind of wrecks the profit model or something. So yeah, this was the next story was how you guys feel about BitFlyer.
So I have some minor insider information on BitFlyer, not really insider information, just personal experiences. Like I went to a meetup in Tokyo, and there was a girl called Aya who's working at BitFlyer. She's presenting stuff about the company, and just not a developer, nothing special, just presenting. That's her job. And she was talking about Tumbleweed. I was working on Tumbleweed then. And I'm like, okay, this is going to be fun. So I went to her. Oh, okay. You talk about Tumbleweed, but can you explain what Tumbleweed is? Because I'm not really familiar with it. So, and in that 5 minutes, she explained it perfectly. I mean,
wow.
I was just looking at it. Oh my God. Like I couldn't explain it right now because it's such a monster, but that was amazing.
That is not what I expected you to say. That story took a an unexpected twist. You said that it was a good description. So yeah, maybe they got some smart people working there, and they'll do some good things.
Hopefully, competent people leads to competent company.
I'd like to hear Brian Armstrong describe how Lightning works after all this time. I doubt we would be as satisfied.
I'd like him to describe how Coinbase works. I don't think he even knows that much.
He's trying to get down their decision making first, then maybe Coinbase.
And there was another time I gave a little presentation in a room, and BitFlyer was the sponsor, and there were some BitFlyer guys, and they were really nice developers. And there was the CEO of BitFlyer. They were looking for a guy, a C# programmer. It was actually when BitFlyer started, so it was a small company back then. And And I was thinking of working there, but the CEO is a guy who I think he did not laugh in his life. I mean, he's just so serious. He's so serious all the time. I don't know what to think of him.
Well, that's good to hear that, you know, they're taking it seriously and they understand what's going on. So, yeah, going from BitFlyer on to another big project trying to make a big name in the space is a former hedge fund manager at Fortress Investment Group, Bloomberg LP, and billionaire Mike Novogratz, who partnered with Bloomberg Galaxy Crypto Index. And yeah, they're going to be forming a cumulative performance on large cap cryptocurrencies. And, you know, I guess this is a good thing. Like, this is another one of these big players, I guess, coming into the space, forming an index. And so Novogratz raised $250 million to create a cryptocurrency merchant bank in Canada as well, which I guess that was just not too long ago they did that. And so the Bloomberg, he's saying, Novogratz says the Bloomberg Galaxy Crypto Index brings unprecedented transparency to the crypto markets. Thus, we are excited to help drive the decentralized revolution forward through the creation of BGCI, which, yeah, this comes on top of the recent Coinbase and Grayscale index funds. And recently that's been talked about, you know, ICE, the International Continental Exchange, and Blockstream's working with those guys to do something with bringing some data feed from different cryptos. So, you know, all these sort of indexes are popping up to, you know, help people sort of figure out what's going on. And, you know, this guy, Novogratz, he's supposedly one of the biggest Bitcoin bulls to ink a deal for a cryptocurrency price index, which, like, I'm never really, I don't know, I'm not familiar with Novogratz, but apparently he's pretty bullish on Bitcoin. And this is pretty good, you know, news to hear coming from, I guess, the Bloomberg side of things, since, you know, Michael Bloomberg's a big blockchain, not Bitcoin guy. And, you know, this is last part of this article, though, where they're like, because I was trying to look into this to sort of see, like, okay, you know, they're talking about cryptos and, like, this guy's a Bitcoin bull, like this index, you know, I mean, you know, it's going to be large cap cryptos that are not Bitcoin. And so what's going on? And I don't know, the last little bit of the article kind of threw me, saying Novogratz is betting the price volatility and regulation crackdown on crypto. It is eradicating the expanding of a decentralized medium of exchange or store value, which, like, I think I think the person writing this article might want to reword that or something to where I could understand what she's trying to say about it. Cause it sounded to me like, you know, he's betting against crypto or something. And I don't know. I think that we're not getting the full story on this, but this is just like, yeah, another major player jumping in the field saying, like, you know, they're going to come up with an index so that people can get their data points on this and, you know, probably work towards those ETFs later this year. Or, you know, I think we've seen the Winklevoss twins are trying to put together an ETF through a patent or something. So I think, yeah, these indexes, I'm sure they're going to be helpful for that. But it's just another one of these things where it's like we're seeing all these institutional players come into the space, and I've kind of got mixed feelings about it, because it's like I really don't know that many of them or what exactly their stance is on these things. But as they're coming in, I'm looking into it. So, yeah, there's this other index now for people to keep an eye on what's going on with these high-value cryptos. So what do you guys think about that, these indexes?
I've kind of got mixed feelings about it, because
they
like, I know that dumb money is going to come into the space, and it's going to be dumb at first, because we have like a whole generation of people we have to like educate, and that's not going to, they'll probably mostly die off before they actually get educated. So that, you know, I expect that there's going to be a lot of dumb decisions, and we have to go mainstream at some point, more and more mainstream. So that probably means a lot of altcoin nonsense, at least for the short term. But
they're interested.
Yeah, but on the other hand, like, this pile of garbage with Bitcoin stuffed in it, and then people are investing, you know, heavily in it. I don't know, man. I want, it's like, would you rather somebody not invest any money, or they invest $10 in Bitcoin and $80 in shit coins? Like, I don't know. That's just, that cuts too deep. I can't answer that one. That's painful.
Yeah, it's something like I'm saying, I've kind of got mixed feelings on too, but like you're saying, it's just one of those things about growing. You know, people are going to step up and do the business that they know. And looks like a lot of the traditional stuff is just sort of creating their own thing and, you know, building out what they can with like BitFlyer moving across, you know, the globe there. And, you know, Goldman getting involved with Poloniex, and they've got their own OTC desk, and, you know, yeah, ICE and all this stuff. It's just, yeah, they got to come in at some point. So I guess we need to just figure out how to deal with it.
Yeah, it is kind of a good transition to the Nvidia story, though. There's kind of some light at the end of the tunnel, possibly, with all these crap coins. So Nvidia basically announced that they're seeing fewer crypto miners and more gamers. They did an earnings call and talked through their financials. They've been trying to hedge and say, I don't know if you guys want to screen share something there, but they've been trying to hedge because there's so much demand that their stock is like, you know, skyrocketing, right? It's gone up like 34.4% this year, which is a pretty good year. But that's the problem, is that a lot of the demand that's created that, you know, high profit and really impressive sales is from cryptocurrency mining. And Nvidia doesn't think, because they're not stupid, that GPU cryptocurrency mining is going to be a long-term thing. So they're in this tough situation where they're like, yeah, business is great, but chill out and don't overvalue us too much, because there's these idiots that think altcoins are going to work and they're buying up our hardware, and that's a short-lived thing. So I like that in general, right? I just like that kind of context there. And then on top of that, there's some really good news in the story, I think, which is the amount of GPU sales has gone down. Like they said that basically the supply chain was really tight, but it's not tight anymore. The last quarter, it lightened up quite a bit, and regular old gamers now are able to get their hands on hardware a lot easier. So the demand for all of the shitcoin miners is down, according to those guys. It could be just because Bitcoin has been flat, and so all the altcoins are flat. I think that's probably the source of that relief. But it kind of makes me think of Bitcoin as, you know, we busted out and went really high and attracted a bunch of parasites, and now it's just fine if we need to hang out between, like, you know, 6,000 and 10,000 for a while and just drown these filthy animals, and then we can go swim freely again. So I'm hoping that's what's going on with that Nvidia story, and you know, there's some good light at the end of the tunnel, in spite of the index funds of crap with Bitcoin.
Yeah, I saw that where they were saying that the drop off for the demand had happened, and I don't know, like, I guess it'd be good to stop hearing, you know, so many gamers complain about they can't get a GPU and they're so expensive and everything. But yeah, it's one of those things where I'm thinking, like, you know, they get a taste for the mining profits though, and, you know, they know that the GPU is not the way to go. It makes me wonder if they're going to start talking about developing some ASIC or something. I just don't know what these guys develop, but I mean, you know, besides GPUs, but I mean, they're big in the space, and I imagine they got, you know, some right connections to where if they wanted to get into that market, they could probably do it and just bring in some more ASIC competition.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, they're a somewhat more diversified company than I would have thought. Like, they do a lot of basically cloud hosting, right? So like Amazon and Microsoft uses those guys for a lot of, I think, machine learning related calculations. So they're investing more in AI, or AI, you know, friendly hardware, I guess. So they've got plenty of market share to go after without having to go after the cryptocurrency space. And I'm guessing that that's a better fit for their business, right? It fits their expertise better, because their whole history has been GPUs. But yeah, it will be interesting because I think the temptation to get involved with Bitcoin is just going to continue to grow as the price grows, and we'll definitely see more competition trying to build ASICs. So it wouldn't be a stretch for those guys to go there. But for now, they're shitcoin miners, and happily they're seeing declines in sales. So woo!
No dirty animals were drowned during the making of this show.
What's that? Dirty animals. Oh, no.
That was my
JW said something about drowning dirty animals. I do not support drowning animals.
Oh no, I missed it.
But what if they're like parasitical animals? What if they're parasites? Then we can drown them, right?
There's no
Like
parasites.
A tapeworm.
Well,
like we can.
Tapeworms aren't going to drown. JW, they like live in water a lot of the time.
Yeah, let's just end the whole.
You're taking the analogy too far. We'll drown them in acid. How about that? Damn, tapeworms are acid resistant. Never mind. I don't know. We will smash these filthy little parasites.
No, okay, that's it. JW, no. Fascist foot coming down. No more talking about killing poor innocent parasites.
Instead, we will grab Fluffy Pony by the scruff of his dirty neck.
All right, leave Fluffy alone. Leave Fluffy out of it. All right, but here is some rather sad news, actually. There is on our Bitcoin right now a farewell letter from the Pineapple Fund. The 5,000 and change Bitcoin has been converted, donated to a number of different pretty awesome charities. A few examples are some clean water projects, open mapping software, some funding for clinical styles of MDMA as a PTSD treatment, and they took that money and they did what they said they were going to do with it. They gave every cent of it away to some kind of charitable, service or product. And I mean, I just kind of want to point this out as like an example of how you can still have mechanisms for like helping people in bad situations without forcibly funded like welfare state programs. Like when people really just amass insane amounts of wealth to the point where they couldn't spend it in 10 lifetimes, I mean, what are they going to do with it? Like people will take chunks of money when they amass wealth to that degree, and they will donate it to people in bad situations. They will donate it to people who need help. And like, I think this is a perfect example. I mean, really, like Bitcoin's price and like liquidity and market cap is still just chump change. And here's somebody already who's given away literally 5,000 Bitcoin. I mean, like, as awesome as it is to see that happen in that situation, I probably wouldn't do that. And frankly, I think he's crazy. that kind of money potentially in 20 years could literally found a country. And he just gave it away to people in need or people trying to help those in need. And I mean, I think this has been a pretty good example of altruism, at its finest.
I don't remember how much Bitcoin he said he had in total, but I'm pretty sure he said he had enough that he's not going to need money for the rest of his life. So I don't, in that respect, I'm not that concerned. And to be honest, if he has enough Bitcoin now to say that, he'll probably have enough to found a country in a few decades anyway. So.
Yeah, I think it's worth pointing out that like not all rewards in an economy or not all motivations that humans have that have an impact on the economy, which is just the free market, right? People making decisions without a gun to their head and exchanging things, right? Not all those motivations are dollars, right? Like people get rewarded and they feel psychic benefit from just taking care of other people and doing nice things. And it is nice to see that that's a big part of human nature. Is once, it'd be nice if we self-sacrificed more, but On the other hand, you know, when we do have our needs met, we do tend to have a desire to take care of the people around us, even people that we don't know. And that's kind of a cool part of human nature that I think we definitely underestimate. And I don't think it's a coincidence that governments want us to underestimate the positive parts of human nature because it makes it a lot easier to get us to worship and adore them for keeping us safe, when really at the end of the day, if there was 10 guys out in the woods and somebody got hurt, you know, the other 9 guys are going to drag them along. It's just the way that we're wired. So this is a cool story.
Maybe it was Roger Ver.
Yeah, there's that.
It's possible. He doesn't have to be all bad.
Yeah.
You know, thinking I have too much Bitcoin core coins. What should I do with them? What's my favorite food? Pineapple.
Damn you, no, damn you.
Didn't Satoshi have a post about pineapple too? So it could have been him. I like that theory better personally.
Yes, something like that I remember too.
Yeah, either which way, yeah, it's definitely one of those things where I think you'll see some, you know, altruism in the space where, you know, people just sort of find themselves abnormally wealthy.
Booger's guy says that it's probably the pizza guy who received 10,000 Bitcoin.
What kind of pizza was it? What kind of pizza was it?
Pineapple pizza.
Oh.
No.
Wait, did the rest of you not get that joke? You do know that pineapple pizza is like one of the most hated things on Twitter.
Apparently. Hated on Twitter.
Isn't
Okay.
it the Hawaiian one?
They're
Hawaii pizza.
Yeah. There are people who say that like pineapple pizza is like devil's food and stuff. It's like really weird. It's funny because the only time I eat pineapples is when they're on pizza.
What? Dude, pineapples are awesome. I buy pineapples by the whole and just cut them up. They're so good. But yeah, like, you know, it's funny. I like host this meetups and I buy some pizzas. And one time I bought a half pineapple pizza, and that one didn't get touched. I don't know. So yeah, I think stay away from the pineapple pizza.
That's because there was that's how you know there were no girls at the Bitcoin meetup.
Well, that's not true because I had to get gluten-free pizza, and that's the one they went for. All right, man.
Go through these. All right. Well, guess let's slide it along to the next story. A cautionary tale. Do not go to random websites and download Bitcoin wallets, especially when they try to use names in common with other Bitcoin wallets or try to pull switcheroo. Like always make sure when you're clicking on the first Google link that it's not an ad, because people will pay to have the ad put there for scam shit. So you click on it and blah, 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 blah. But yeah, there was an Electrum Pro fork claiming to be a version of Electrum that was being blatantly called out by Electrum themselves. And Electrum actually went through and audited their code to, sorry, I'm failing with the screen share here. The touch screen does not want to listen. But yeah, they pretty much busted them red-handed with the code, taking your keys and sending them back to the domain that they were actually distributing the wallet through. And I mean, like, this is like, to me, this is just like the most blatant, like, this steal my money situation I've ever seen. And I can't help but think that there's probably a decent number of people out there who actually fell for this and lost money. And I mean, like, this is really, it could not, this problem of distributing the things to users that they use to manage their keys could not be understated, because the bigger things get, the more the user base explodes. Like, these problems are going to grow in complexity and scale and like how frequently they occur, like exponentially. And it's like, really, this is something that people need to think through a process or a really solid way to handle this, because this is only going to get worse the bigger we get.
Absolutely, man. Like, yeah, I mean, just like in that BitFlyer story, I was looking for the jobs listings, and I was like, I thought I found it, and I was like, I better not, post this just because I'm not 100% sure that this is like BitFlyer's job listing and stuff. And yeah, it definitely makes me think that we need to, get people on these correct wallets that people are using, because yeah, I mean, we'll definitely see more of this stuff coming in the future. Kind of reminds me of like, I don't know. I remember like the beginning of the whole AOL hacking scene, where it was like there was a program that would come out and then another program would come out with a similar name to try and like just get people to convince them to come their way. And yeah, I imagine we'll start seeing like all sorts of variations of what, wallets that people do use that, trying to attract some people over that way. So I have to, I guess start telling people, because I remember, I know we still tell people that, like, I don't know, does Poloniex still not have an app? Like, I know that they've been in trouble quite a few times whenever like the news story keeps popping up where there's a Poloniex app on the store that people are getting scammed from. So yeah, just, always go check 100% that you're downloading the app from the people that you're trying to get from. Because yeah, Electrum Pro, that doesn't, yeah, it's not Electrum.
Yeah, I think hardware wallets are going to be good for this. And people kind of know that they need to buy stuff from trusted sources, especially when it's physical. But there'll be a constant stream of these stories. But as we get more and more mainstream adoption, it's going to be a lot of news stories that are freaking people out and causing them to make sure they buy from trusted sources and go with hardware wallets. So I think it's unfortunate, but I think that's how it's just got to play out. There's no real fix for this other than that.
Hardware wallets.
And Nopar, you don't have any input on this problem here? I mean, as a wallet developer yourself, I'm sure this is something it's kind of pop into your mind sometime. You know what I mean?
Yes, I think this was the smartest scam I ever seen. Have you seen Electrum Pro website? Electrum.com. That was a great website. Everything was so figured out, really.
Well, I mean, I've been on the road, so I kind of didn't really get a chance to dig into like a third of the stories. But I'm just speaking to me, because it's like I know that wallet, and if I see anything but the source, I know it's like, okay, that's a scam. But I mean, like for somebody not in my position, like this is a huge problem when you're taking that first step into this space.
Yeah, it's definitely one of those things that could turn away somebody who wants to get, into Bitcoin, and then they run into that problem. And yeah. But yeah, they usually do a good job. If it's somebody that's a good, competent scammer, they'll definitely replicate that website to the T and make it look like you're at the right place. So always double check.
But think about it. They didn't steal the money. They could have stolen the money right away. If someone sent some money into Electrum, they could have stolen it. But no, they didn't steal anyone's money. They tried to promote it more and more and more. And when the Electrum guys, so when everything went to shit, when the Electrum guys reverse engineered their code and showed that, hey, it sends the seeds to through a post request to a website, that's when, okay, we cannot do this anymore. People are withdrawing from withdrawing our money, and they took it. And that's when they emptied every Electrum Pro wallet at once. I mean, I don't know. That there are some interesting ways to scam people, but this was one of the smartest. I you know what do you remember the Bitcoin.com mobile wallet? You know, you could just write a stupid app for Bitcoin Cash users, targeting Bitcoin Cash users, and they download the app, and the app just takes the money from their Bitcoin.com wallet. I mean, that would be a quite easy stuff to do. Or all these JavaScript wallets, you know, JavaScript developers are notorious of using every kind of npm repositories they have no idea about. So yeah, you could just start contributing to any JavaScript wallet, and then half a year later you add an npm repository which happens to be yours or something, and that's it. You stole their money. It's this startup mentality doesn't really work in Bitcoin space. Yeah.
Yeah, I remember something like that happening with Bitcoin Gold as soon as it launched. That the actual Bitcoin Gold website was compromised, and it was sending. I think it was like a bad download for the Bitcoin Gold wallet, and they ended up taking how much money? I think it was a significant amount. It was like $1 million. I'm checking that really quick.
Yeah, where there's money, there's scams, and elegant ones too.
So they stole over $1 million worth of Bitcoin. Well, they stole the Bitcoin. They didn't steal the Bitcoin Gold. They took the Bitcoin because people put their seeds into the wallet, and then they hadn't separated their original Bitcoin funds from the Bitcoin Gold, and so they just stole the Bitcoin. It was over $1 million. Like, that was ridiculous.
Yeah, the thing that is like terrifying to me is that somebody could get one of these vulnerabilities out and, like Nopara said, not steal the money from anybody right now. Like, just sit on it and just watch the money grow. Because they have the private keys, they could just sit there and watch it tick up and watch the price go up, watch new people get sucked in and sign up and create a wallet with the vulnerability, and then, wait till it hits $1 trillion or something crazy and then cash it all out. So yeah, it's that supply chain stuff, whether it's physical or not, is still kind of scary.
Yeah, and I'm just I see Boogers is saying, at some point you got to trust the wallet, and unless you can read the code, and I think that's where just doing what we're doing and doing what people who are in the space and understand the space. It's like you have to stay current with these things. I mean, like what's a good wallet this year might not be a good wallet next year, so you really do have to stick with the developments and understand who's developing what wallets and make sure that you're getting the right one. So yeah, there's like a
next year only Wasabi wallet will be the good wallet, nothing else.
Okay, yeah, next year we're going to check out that wallet. It's going to be
actually good. It will be this year. August 1 is the release of the beta version, and November 5 is the stable one. So yeah, from now on Bitcoin will be anonymous, and I'm not really kidding here.
That's awesome, man. So did you say August 1st you're going to have the beta out?
Yes.
Nice. Awesome. Well, I am looking forward to it.
It's a holiday. It's going to be on a holiday. We're going to make a big thing about it. It's going to be awesome.
I wasn't really promoting or writing articles in this year because I didn't put anything new. Everything what I did, okay, I made it light, but it was ready by December, but I rewrote everything and I made it as a light wallet now that the new client-side filtering from the Lightning developers came out. My point is that everything I did was tests. I added so many tests, just trying to make sure everything is 100% stable. So yeah, it's nothing new, but it's gonna be great.
Awesome, man. Testing's a big part of it. So yeah, that's awesome to hear that you are in testing. It's awesome.
And I'm just glad to see, Nopara, that that Samurai isn't the only one out there thinking privacy. I mean, like, you've been working on actually building a private wallet for users for a while now, and you've actually been giving it serious thought, not just farting something out and then going, done.
I'm trying.
Good job, bud.
All right. Well, now that I have clumsily gotten the screen share ready, slide along into the next one. Something I am happy to see. Forgive me, everybody, for my stupidity. I immediately stopped the screen share. Okay, there we go. Yeah, there's actually a working prototype testing Dandelion, and come on, let's giddy up. Like, when are we gonna see this? But yeah, I mean, like, this is a pretty awesome thing to see, as like thinking more about how to obscure the origin of a transaction as it's propagating through the network. Because, like, to my understanding right now, Core by default delays a transaction propagation by, I think, like 6 seconds, to kind of try to mess with like timing analysis a little bit, as far as people connecting with multiple nodes and seeing where things go. But like, Dandelion would take that a step further and actually try to project a kind of like a 1-to-1 relay, where a node gets it and only relays it to one other node before finally blasting it out to the whole network from everywhere. And excuse me. It's like these are the kinds of things that make me happy to see. It's not everybody like getting obsessed with do this one thing that requires a contentious change to the network to get what I want, instead of like, okay, where can I start chipping away at this where I don't really need complete consensus to change something? Like, how can I just incrementally improve whatever aspect of the system I'm trying to improve? And like, at the end of the day, that's the most productive way to approach something like Bitcoin, because like, if you just focus yourself on one change that might be a source of contention and just laser focus on that and refuse to work on anything but that, like, you're not going to get it done, and you're not going to see the other opportunities to actually improve different aspects of the network you want to.
I can cover it if you want.
Yeah, if you want to go into it a little bit. It's just this is really throwing me off here with a mouse pad in one screen. I'm used to like up to 3 screens to split everything up between.
Yes, so Dandelion, this project is just amazing. It's not really like developers are building it, but academics, researchers. I don't know where do they have the motivation from, or why do they do this, but this is probably the most researched change I ever seen that is going to get into Bitcoin Core, and it's not contentious at all. What is this? Done right now, if you are broadcasting want to send a transaction, then let's say you are using blockchain info, then you are going to tell blockchain info this is your IP address, and this IP address wants to broadcast this transaction. And there is an easy solution for that. Use Tor, broadcast it over Tor. But that's not kind of ideal. That's a good solution, not idea. Okay, what does Bitcoin Core do? In Bitcoin Core, you broadcast the transaction to every node you are connected to. Well, if you are not using Bitcoin Core over Tor, then you expose that IP address sent the transaction to those nodes, you expose that the transaction was yours. However, it's not that easy, not that simple, because Bitcoin Core, you are broadcasting other people's transactions too. So it's not that easy to figure out that who was the source of the transaction. But it's not impossible. So what does Dandelion do? This is not the full protocol, but this is the basic idea. Dandelion, every user at the initial phases send the transaction to one node. You got a transaction, you only broadcast it to one node. Dot gets transaction, only broadcasted to one node, and there is a probability that you're going to broadcast to all nodes now. So, but what you notice there, that when a transaction arrives to you, you don't know if that was the node who broadcasted the transaction to you, if that was the origin or just a middle node that forwarded the transaction. Dandelion is an ideal solution. I mean, so much research went into it, and they wrote documentation. They wrote the code. They wrote tests on their own network, and this is really small change, if you think about it. But it was so well researched. And now, what is the update now? That one of the guy from Dandelion sent an email to the Bitcoin developer mailing list, which is really just they wrote documentation, they polished the code, they wrote tests, and now they want to present to a wider audience. That's the goal with what that's the update. Like, you would say it's nothing, but it's still a lot of work went into it. I'm just curious, when do they want to finally write a pull request to core? When is the pull request? That's the big question.
Yeah, I want to know that too, man. It'd be interesting to start seeing these things in the wild for sure, because it's just like, with your wallet and Samurai and everybody just like coming together with these different ways to obfuscate transactions. Everything's really awesome development. So I'd like to see that merge on there pretty soon.
Yeah. I know I've seen Greg Maxwell talk about it as if it was going to be kind of high on the priority list post .016. But one thing I want to say real quick is I want to see this tied into BIPs 150 and 151 for peer-to-peer encrypted communication, and then like a node identity key to do like black or white listing off of, because then you could actually try to like build up your own like trust spine for the Dandelion, like initial like one-to-one propagation, and have like a higher degree of confidence that they're not just going to broadcast it to the whole network before they're supposed to. You're like, you know what I mean?
I don't actually.
Well, I'm saying, like, when you start relaying something through Dandelion, you have that risk that someone before the end of it propagates it to the network at large instead of just relaying it. Where if nodes have...
That's not a risk. That's not a risk. There is a probability. So you got a transaction, and let's say there is a 50% probability that you're gonna propagate it to every node. But actually, it's not even that. The first phase you are propagating to one node, and the next phase is stem, you are propagating to two nodes. So they made it more complicated.
Okay, we'll have to look into it. But like, I don't know, I've always just thought like at least to me, it would be a good idea to get it like as far disconnected from your node on the network graph as possible, because like we have seen, and I think still do see, nodes that try to connect to as many like other nodes out there as possible to be able to pull off like timing analysis, or like potentially with Dandelion, like you'd be able to see like have multiple hops or like relays be like your Sybil node and be able to try to like start picking at things like that. And I just like the idea of being able to like be a little more selective with how your node like interacts with others on the peer-to-peer network. And I think like, I don't know, let's get BIP 150 and 51 in.
You know, we already have good solutions for this. I mean, you can broadcast over Tor. You can change Tor identity before every broadcasting. But this Dandelion stuff is a perfect solution. Like seriously, it's just perfect. We had good solutions for that, and I'm using it. Other people are using that. And the simple Bitcoin core propagation is not that bad. So chances are no one's going to find the source of the transaction are high because you are broadcasting every transaction, except if you are only a listening node, you know, then that's a problem. But you are broadcasting every transaction, what comes to your node and goes out. So yeah, but there still is the possibility that somehow that you're leaking something what you don't want, and that's what Dandelion just puts an end of it. And you know, they did it in such an academic way. Well, at least what they said, this is something like mathematically provable, an idea solution, you know, like it's awesome.
It's awesome, man. Like, yeah, see it.
Hey, Nopar, does this feel like deja vu where, you know, like last year I wasn't around, but I imagine that it probably was frustrating to see all of the scaling coins running around when like all the real good scaling work was being done on Bitcoin. And it's like, once you know what's going on, it's like inevitable, right? Like we knew that Lightning was going to happen, you know, a long time ago, right? If you're at all technical, and you know it's just going to make all this stuff seem silly. Do you feel that same way on the privacy coins, where it's like it's inevitable that Bitcoin's going to be the right solution for privacy, and we still have to watch these idiots just like run around and bounce off walls and tell stories?
I'm not very optimistic about the privacy coins, but I really like how the Monero community is handling things, and how much research goes into the Zcash stuff. But
Sorry, go ahead.
I gotta say, JW, you weren't. I mean, like honestly, you say Lightning was like, oh, it was definitely gonna be easy, man. SegWit itself was not easy, and that was like really, we were like worried there, sweating our brow, wondering if we were ever gonna get that.
Well, I can tell you I was going to get it. If I had been around, I know I would have gotten it. I don't know about you idiots. You might have ended up on the wrong chain, but I was going to get SegWit.
Wait.
JW,
So
we thought that I was willing to break Bitcoin to push that in there, because the risk of not getting it and letting that political leverage be exerted to establish a formal political control process was that unacceptable to me. Like that was not easy. That was literally, I was willing to break Bitcoin over this if it came down to it. And that was
I don't quite understand
the scary time for a little bit.
Oh man, this is such a tangent, and it's such a tangent. It's the end, but I'm super curious about that because I didn't live it. So you guys are going to have to tell me this story, but not today because we're pushing the time, and that'll be like a 30-minute chat. But we should talk about it next time.
Well, let me just put it this way. Rick Falkfinch said that Jesus would return for the third time before Lightning was up and running. So that's how crazy it was.
Yeah, it was wild. We'll definitely dig into that. Like, we'll just wait for the right story to cruise into it, because there was definitely some history making going on.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know. You guys want to move along to the last story real quick before we call it a day? All right. This is, I think, potentially good news, potentially weird news, and where this could really go in the long term. But Canaan, a big competitor to Bitmain, I think actually the next largest mining company, is planning to do an IPO on the Hong Kong Stock Exchange, and they are planning on trying to raise $1 billion. So I mean, like, it's most of this is just a rundown of revenue figures, profitability, and some comparisons against Bitmain. But I really didn't really care about the numbers much as far as like what I wanted to bring up with this. It's the idea that whatchamacallit, like you're not going to have the entire decision making process for an ASIC company. That changes the entire dynamic. Like that changes the entire direction of the company, like how their business model is going to evolve, like where their kind of thinking is going to go, because you totally change the dynamic between like the money. Like you are now beholden to public investors. You are now, at least in the US, legally mandated to maximize profit for those investors. And I think that could really take things in a really weird thought or like direction, like as far as like how is this going to change the mining ecosystem?
It's definitely good to see, more mining competition come in, and somebody that's been a Bitmain competitor before, and they know what they're up against, and they're ready to take on the fight. So yeah, let's bring it on. More mining competition, please.
But yeah. Oops. I just leaked the internal. Okay, I'm officially done with laptops. I will buy a brand new desktop if I have to go on the road again and build a power supply into a vehicle.
Oh God, our agenda has just been leaked. What will we do now? It's not like we post it all the time in the video description.
All right, but
the Bilderberg group is going to have our necks for that one.
Oh well. But yeah, Nopar actually had something he wanted to correct himself on from the last episode, and then I guess I can go through the more frustrating than normal thought loading process. Gosh, can we please do independent screen shares for final thoughts, guys? Please. Yeah, Nopar, if you wanted to
go to the end. It's going from the bottom to up.
That deafening silence was a no, Shinobi. No.
Yes. So in the last time I said I don't agree with what Shinobi said about samurai, because I interpreted it somehow differently, but it turned out that I mixed up BIP 69 and BIP 126, and now I'd like to correct myself. Shinobi was right. It's going to be a little bit of explanation. So in the first scenario, when you send a Bitcoin transaction, you want to send 2 Bitcoin. Then your wallet has a 3 Bitcoin input and going to generate a 2 Bitcoin output and a 1 Bitcoin output. That's going to be the change back to you. So for example, if it will be blockchain info, then blockchain analysis looks at the fees, and it sees that, hey, blockchain info is generating this kind of fees, so it must be a blockchain info transaction. Then it knows that blockchain info always puts the change transaction, the change output to the second place. So the blockchain analysis will figure out that you sent 2 Bitcoin and 1 Bitcoin went back to your own wallet as a change. Okay, you can go up. So BIP69 improves upon it by requiring transaction inputs and outputs to be ordered lexicographically. And this way, if it's ordered, then blockchain analysis doesn't know that which one is the change and which one is the active output if it looks at the transaction. This is what Samurai is using. Using shuffling, or Breeze wallet from Stratis, they are using shuffling too. I know because I implemented it. And this is how we can avoid leaking information about which one is the change. Next one, up. Up. Wait, yes. Now the problem comes in. No, go down. You went up too much. Yes. Now the problem comes in if you want to send 4 Bitcoin, then, and your largest unspent transaction output in your wallet is 3 Bitcoin. Then what is your wallet going to do? It's going to select 2 coins, let's say the 3 Bitcoin one and a 1.5 Bitcoin one, and generate an output of 4 Bitcoin and 0.5 back to change. And this, the blockchain analysis knows exactly which one is the change and which one is the active, because it's always the smallest, the change. This is a clustering strategy. And this is what BIP 126 is doing. They call these kind of transactions heterogeneous input script or whatever. This is also a Christoph Atlas Bitcoin improvement proposal, and he likes to use words that are very technical, and they call these kind of transactions heat. And the BIP 126 gives some recommendations. You can go up. Go up, yes. The recommendation is basically you always have to have 2 outputs, what is the same amount. So this way, no one knows which one is the change. It is actually sending 2 Bitcoin to a wallet. It's the same as the first transaction was shown before. The point is you can do the same thing with heat transactions very often. But if you look at the first transaction, they didn't know what was the change, and now they don't know what's the change either. But you joined together 2 coin, and you can go up. So you exposed common ownership, and this is the problem with BIP 126. You expose common ownership, and blockchain analysis is looking at transaction chains. What does that mean? Is that if it's not looking at the one transaction, but looks at the next transaction, and it can see that, hey, this next transaction was done by an exchange, so this must be the active output and the rest must be the changes. These are the problems with BIP 126, and what's worse is that you actually expose the common ownership and you didn't gain anything. And in zero link, I defined, because joining inputs together is so dangerous for privacy, that wallets should never join inputs together, which was my theory, but it didn't turn out to be practical to make this this restriction for my users. So you can go up a bit. And what I ended up doing, not implementing BIP 126, but rather giving some coin control features and coin control recommendations in my hidden wallet implementation last, that really incentivizes the user to not join inputs together and spend whole coins. So later the changes won't be joined together too. For example, if you want to pay salary to someone for $2,000, then you have a $2,100 coin in your wallet. Then I guess you are going to be okay with spending the whole coin to your employee, and it's better if you are not generating the $100 change, because you don't care about that much money, something like that. So you can avoid input joining pretty often. And I myself, I'm using Bitcoin Core, and it has a coin control feature, which should be learned by everyone. And I didn't join inputs together for years now. I don't know. I didn't. And I'm actually using Bitcoin quite a lot. This is what I figured. And Samurai, what Samurai figured is retiring BIP 126 to Stonewall. This was the news lately, and I'm not going into what Stonewall is. We went into last time. I hope this explanation was understandable. Thank you.
That was awesome, man. I understand probably 80% of that, and I'm really glad that you're working on that stuff. And it makes sense. It's interesting that there is kind of a trade-off between the privacy and, like, the other things you can optimize for, like keeping as few outputs left over as possible. But yeah, it's good stuff, dude. I can't wait for your Lightning enabled privacy wallet that I can start running. I was actually a lot less excited about some of this stuff. I haven't talked to you in a while, but I think, I don't know, a couple months ago, I was like, man, I don't know if all this stuff is going to be as important because of confidential transactions. And I'm glad you kept working on it, man, because a couple of weeks ago, somebody was like, yeah, there's some downsides to confidential transactions. And they were things that I hadn't thought of, not existing attacks, but it just opens up more attack surface that we wouldn't have otherwise. And this stuff doesn't. So it's kind of a no-brainer good. And yeah, you're killing it, man. Thanks.
Yes, so confidential transactions would break Bitcoin by 2027 at the latest with quantum computers. At least that's the worry, which is kind of a real worry. It's in this form what we have today, bulletproofs. It's not gonna go into it. And yeah, I was expecting, I am still expecting that some amount hiding thing like like confidential transactions bulletproofs will come along, and I can simplify a lot of things very easily. But lately I'm starting to have backup plans, and I noticed things how to join unequal inputs, how to anonymize, how to maximize the anonymization of unequal inputs, and maybe I will start working on that after we rolled out the software, because I don't know, waiting for confidential transactions is a gamble.
Yeah, totally. Yep, that makes sense. So yeah, I'm glad you're not working on Monero. Just shout out to Brian.
All right, well, Janine, 1 second, I fumble. And there we go. Thought loaded.
Yeah, so as many of you may have noticed, there's been a lot of controversy about this woman who, okay, you might hear the gangster car going down the road. I don't know if you heard that. It was very loud. You may have heard about Gina Haspel, because she's been nominated to be the director of the CIA, and some people who, you know, I thought were friends have been making some really not so good tweets about the fact that she has so much experience and she'll be perfect for the role, even though she signed off on extrajudicial torture over the course of her 30-year career, but whatever. So this is actually a video of a former CIA officer, Ray McGovern, who became an activist. He was protesting at the Senate confirmation hearing, and 78-year-old man, dragged out forcibly by police. And I don't know if you want to play the whole video. It's not quite long, but as you'll see here, they shove him on the ground, dislocate. He already had an injured shoulder, and I think they dislocated it again when they were doing all of this. But it's just so ridiculous and shows the length that they will go to prevent people from, you know, talking about the fact that she's a murderer, and the CIA as an organization itself is so messed up on many levels. I think it should just be disbanded. That's my opinion. So yeah, it's pretty horrifying, but nothing that I wouldn't expect from a bunch of fascists. So yeah, this is what they will do. They will literally throw a old man on the ground who is not harming anyone, who is just protesting the fact that this woman is being nominated for director, and this is what they do to people who speak out against that. So, yep.
Yeah, definitely not surprising, upsetting, but not surprising. Can't really comment more than that. It's just, yeah, it's the CIA, I guess.
All right, well, I guess if there's no other final thoughts, we done, or any more thoughts left?
Show mine, man. I wanna brag about MathBot. Oh, actually, wait a minute. I can just click on me. I'm sharing it already. So yeah, final thought. Check out MathBot. Anders just decided he was going to get seriously involved. He's a great guy. He's foreign or something, so you know, don't hold that against him. I think he's French or German or something like that. But apparently those guys can do math too occasionally. So he's really excited about MathBot, and already doing a lot of great work with helping get the word out and kind of understand it. And there's a lot. You know, it's kind of there's a lot to try to communicate, and I haven't done the best job at that because I'm just trying to keep up with building it. But Anders is doing a great job, and I think, I don't know, like 1 million impressions in the last 24 hours or something, and I think we've got like finally crossed over 1,000 signups in the last 24 hours. So yeah, it's going well, and could use all the support we can get. So if you want to work on the project, especially if you're a dev of any type, let me know.
Oh, can I ask something of MathBot?
Yeah.
I played with it for I don't know, for 20 minutes or something. And I liked it as a game, but I didn't go far enough to understand its purpose, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, totally.
Could you explain that what I can expect from it to learn?
Yeah, thanks for asking me. Actually, this is a perfect example of why I need guys like Anders, because I'm not communicating the vision as well as I'd like to. But the Singapore style of math is like you use objects like little blocks, and they call them manipulables. But like you have a block that represents 1 and a block that represents 10, and so you'll count to like 9 with the 1 block, and then swap that out for the 10 block, so that you start understanding how a 10-based number system works. So you have these different blocks and they have different colors, right? And then when you do adding, like if you added like 13 and 25, you'd take a 10 block and a 3 block and add it with a two 10 blocks and 5 blocks or whatever. So the idea with MathBot is that you do that, but instead of actually touching stuff, you have the robot move the objects around. So if you were to add like 5 plus 3, you'd make a pile of 5, and then you'd make a pile of 3 and combine those together and then count them. But you're not going to actually touch them. You're going to tell the robot how to do it. The levels that we have out so far are just like very basic programming, like walk around, pick up, put down, solve a maze. The ones that we're releasing in the next week or two will cover like recursive functions, because you really need to be able to do that to even solve some of the simple math problems, and conditionals like do this if you're holding a blue one, those sort of things. So that'll be out in the next couple of weeks. And then after that, we'll start releasing the addition and subtraction and all of those sort of levels. And then it'll be a little more obvious how math ties in. But yeah, that's the basic idea. We had an old version that we took all the way through division, but we're trying to basically repolish it up and put it out there at a higher quality with the feedback that we got. So that's why we only have a few levels out. But if you sign up now, the intention is when we release a few more levels, we'll hit you up via email and say, hey, check out the addition levels. They're ready for you.
That's awesome. Is it a totally original concept or something like new internet white paper?
It's definitely stealing from Euclid. It had the most of it. Singapore math. There's a game called LightBot that's really great. That kind of informed the way that we do the basics of the UI. And then we just like took that concept and put it on steroids. So like in LightBot, you can create a function and you can put some commands inside it. And in MathBot, you can nest 400 functions deep if you want to. And we're planning to go all the way through calculus.
Okay, great.
But yeah, lots of stealing. Lots of stealing of good ideas for sure.
Yeah, it's a nice little thing to teach people. But yeah, my final thought, just go out there and have a good weekend, folks. It's Saturday, tomorrow Sunday. Have a good one.
Bye-bye.
That's not enough. It's not enough.